I'm a Democrat.
I'm Caitlin Carroll, and I'm a Republican.
And welcome to Debatlin. Many of you may have found it difficult to vote on Super Tuesday. Most people had to choose between going home to vote or applying for an absentee ballot. National voter ID cards could prove to be more of a hassle. How can we make it easier for college students?
The debate on voter identification law sprang up after the 2000 election and is one of the most partisan issues facing U.S. courts today. All states require identification for first-time voters, but 25 states have created broader laws which require voters to show ID before casting their ballots on Election Day. The question which seems to determine the validity of voter ID laws is this: does it disenfranchise voters who cannot produce a photo ID, specifically the poor, elderly, and minorities? Indiana's Democratic Party and the ACLU argued this before the Supreme Court this January and said that it does. But the justices hearing the case against the country's strictest voter ID law seemed skeptical when no instances were produced where voters were denied their ballots. Voters without an ID can place provisional ballots and have 10 days to return with an ID to have their ballot authorized. If you don't have a driver's license, the state issues a photo identification card. If you can't afford to pay the fees it would take to ship your necessary records, like your birth certificate, you can fill out an indigency affidavit 29 days before the election, which waives any fees. Even with all these provisions to ensure everyone can vote once and in his own name, does it still disenfranchise? Opponents of the law insist it does because it targets primarily Democratic voters. But U.S. Solicitor General Paul Clement pointed out that if this was a plan for Republicans to suppress Democratic votes, it went horribly awry. Democrats in Indiana did better in 2006 after the implementation of the law than in the previous race in 2004. Moreover, voter turnout overall was actually up 2%. We'll find how the Supreme Court feels about the law when they release their ruling in June. Until then, the bottom line is that even without voter identification laws, it costs something to vote, and it should. It costs you the gas it gets to the polls, the time to make your decision, and hopefully, the effort to research that decision. The cost of voter ID laws is no more than the cost of being an active and engaged citizen.
The 15th Amendment gave all males the right to vote, and the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. These two landmark amendments established the right for every citizen to vote and have served as a model of equality for years. Now imagine an issue that will effectively prevent large groups of people from voting. That issue is today's topic: national voter identification cards. These cards are meant to make sure that voter fraud, such as double voting, does not occur. Democrats tend to oppose these laws that would establish a voter ID card because they would effectively suppress voting by the poor, the elderly, urban residents, and minority groups, including racial, ethnic, and language minorities. And these groups tend to vote Democrat. That's because these groups may not have a driver's license, which is the most common form of identification accepted for polling. Even if the ID cards were free, some people may not be able to afford the transportation required to obtain one. In regards to the Democratic presidential candidates, it is interesting to note that in September 2005, Senator Barack Obama introduced a non-binding Senate resolution against voter identification laws, with Hillary Clinton as one of the co-sponsors. So my question is this: if we're wanting to encourage more people to vote, shouldn't we make it as easy as possible? Shouldn't we want all Americans to participate? The easiest way to do this would be to use Social Security numbers as a form of identification rather than a driver's license, and to allow for same-day registration. If America wants to stick to the ideal of one man, one vote, we must make sure that each person is given their right to vote.
So, Caitlin, did you have any trouble voting on Super Tuesday?
Well, I actually had to apply for an absentee ballot, and I didn't get started until really late because I didn't really realize how late it had to go. And I think that could be a problem for lots of college students, is you don't really realize how quickly the primary is approaching, and then you realize, like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to have sent that in already. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm really fortunate that I got the ballot in time and I was able to send it in on time. But I think that's a problem that we need to identify and definitely help more people be able to vote on Super Tuesday, because I think young people are a really important demographic.
I actually was able to vote about a month early. Georgia had we were part of Super Tuesday. We were the February 5th crowd. And I voted in early January. I'd already made up my mind, and I knew I wanted to do it before I went back to school for break. So I actually feel like I had no trouble. I went in, I showed them my driver's license, and if I couldn't have afforded it, I would have gone and gotten my free government-issued ID card. But yeah, I found that it was incredibly easy to get everything together.
So, I mean, my question is, this isn't, embryonic stem cell research, abortion, all these things are really controversial issues, but it seems weird to me that something that's not that explosive, voter ID cards, but it's still really divisive along party lines. Why do you think that is?
I know exactly why that is. It's because it was triggered by the aftermath, like I said, of the 2000 presidential race, and it's because people feel that it targets certain demographics, and at the end of the day, politics is all about the people who vote. And especially, I think what's really interesting is that one of the demographics targeted by this is very potentially the elderly, people who don't have their driver's license, who have trouble getting out of the house, but they're very regular voters, the people with the less pressing schedules and with the least busy lives have the time to go to the polls when they get the chance. So I think each side feels like the other one's trying to disenfranchise their voters. So you think it's going to be about American democracy, and it is only in that, who can we get to support us?
Exactly.
Okay. So anything else that we feel like college students should know about voter ID laws?
Well, I would just encourage students to go ahead and, if you missed your state's primary, this is the perfect time to start looking at getting registered to vote and to really get ready for the November elections. And also, I think, if you missed Super Tuesday, now's a great time to start learning, like you said, being an informed candidate or an informed voter.
You should be an informed candidate too.
Hopefully we have informed candidates. Being an informed voter, I think you're right. That is the main cost of voting is your time and your effort. And so I would definitely encourage college students to do it and not to think that their vote doesn't count, because I hear so many times like, oh, I would have voted, but I'm only one vote, and we need to make sure that apathy is not there. People need to really get involved, I think.
Yeah. A long battle. People have been fighting for decades.
Exactly. Well, and I think also, we do have the 15th Amendment and we do have the 19th Amendment, and it's just a shame that people don't take advantage of that, because for so many years people couldn't vote. And, think about, all the women who fought to even have the right to vote, and then, we just don't take advantage of it. Exactly.
Can't make it to the polls.
So I just really think that people need to take advantage of that. That's just ridiculous not to take advantage of your right,
Definitely. So next week on Debatlin, we will be discussing immigration.
Yay! So be sure and tune in next week, and we'll talk about immigration, and I guess that's about it. So hope you enjoyed Debatlin.
Have a great week.